I played Pokemon Pokopia early and got hands-on with the game on both single player as well as multiplayer, and there is so much in this game. Huge thanks to Nintendo of America for inviting me to this event to play this. Now, in this video, we'll be going over my personal experience playing the game, combined with brand new footage, and I'll also be including some trailer footage shown off before to give you some context on certain things. Now, from what I played, it looks like they let me play the intro of the game because it starts off exactly just like the first trailer, where it's Ditto inside of this little cave area looking down at a Pokédex. At this part of the game, your Ditto essentially is going to take on a character that looks like its old trainer. That's pretty much what your Ditto's doing, and there were a ton of options with the faces, as well as the hats, the shirts, the pants, the shoes, even the backpacks. There were a lot to choose from with different color variations, and something I just want to point out, after you choose how you want your Ditto character to look and you name it, if for some reason you feel like you messed up and want to change your outfit later, the game does allow you to do that later on. There is a mirror object that does show up later on in the game that you might have to craft. You can go look at the mirror and completely change how your appearance is, so you never messed up. And it's not just clothing, you can change the skin color, you can change every single thing. So wanted to point that out for everybody. Now, after you finish character creation, your character just runs outside to find Professor Tangrowth, where you're then going to interact with it. Now, the really sad thing is that Professor Tangrowth has been on its own the entire time, and one of the trailers actually just showed Tangrowth sitting there on its own. Days and nights and seasons and weathers were just going by and nobody was there until you appeared in this world. Professor Tangrowth is going to be giving you main quest lines that you're going to be doing in order to progress your game. Now, after having your first interaction with Professor Tangrowth, you're then going to be introduced to your first Pokemon that you find, which is going to be a Bulbasaur. Now, Bulbasaur is interesting because Bulbasaur teaches you the move Leafage. Now, Leafage is really important because what it does is bring up tall grass. Now, once your character learns a specific move, you can look at the bottom right of the screen and you'll see that exact move right over there. Now, in Pokopia, something that you should know, and we'll go more into detail later, is that certain specific objects together create what is known as a Pokemon habitat. And within a Pokemon habitat, certain Pokemon will then pop up that you can be friends with, and that's how they get registered in your decks, etc. Now, another Pokemon that was very important that I was introduced to in the beginning of the game was Squirtle, and the move that Ditto learns with Squirtle is going to be Water Gun. Now, Water Gun is essentially going to just serve its purpose of hydrating anything. Any dry grass starts to become this hydrated grass. Any of the flooring starts to become hydrated with the Water Gun. Pretty simple. This Pokemon habitat caused Charmander to appear, and when the Pokédex shows up, you can see that there are going to be details on the screen, just like a regular Pokédex, that show the description, the height, the weight, and type of Pokemon. Afterwards, Charmander pretty much says, "Do you want me to light a campfire?" Which is going to be its specialty. It lights up campfires. Now, Pokemon can follow you in two ways in this game. You can either go up to the Pokemon and press the up D-pad button, or you can just select follow me once you're interacting with that Pokemon. Now, something very interesting about all the Pokemon in Pokopia is that if they are around a specific object or an item that they can interact with, they will automatically interact with the item. Just like Charmander automatically going up to a campfire and lighting it up on fire. Also, a quick note, at the end of one of the Pokopia trailers, there was also a Torchic on the top left of the screen that was also automatically by a campfire trying to light it up as well. So it seems that some Pokemon that are similar types may have a similar job, so they could be in different locations of an area doing the task. Now, in this game, you'll find sparkles on the ground that you can inspect, and you'll get a message saying that you found a trace of the Pokemon. This is pretty much what is going to be giving you your hints of where to find this Pokemon. Essentially, that hint is going to be exactly what the Pokemon's habitat is. And it feels like these habitats have their own Pokédex. So the cool part about this game is you'll be discovering habitats on your own by finding the gold sparkles on the floor, or you just might accidentally place something next to another object and you might just get a habitat pop-up show up on your screen. So there's different ways of discovering habitats within this game. For this example, in this footage, you can see this Pokemon is Timber, and in this habitat, you can find it during all times of day on the bottom left and in all kinds of weather in the bottom right. The times of day, as you can see, are sunrise, day, sunset, and night, and you can see on the right side, the weather that can show up are sunny, cloudy, and rainy. So Pokemon are going to show up depending on different conditions. Some Pokemon show up during all of them, and the much more rare Pokemon will show up at different times. Now, there is something I do want to point out about Pokemon habitats specifically. Once a Pokemon decides to settle into a habitat and make its home that specific one, no new Pokemon can then spawn in that habitat habitat, Pokemon moves in this game that your character does functions just like a regular Pokemon game, where they are based on PP. And representing the full amount of PP is that meter on the bottom right of the screen. And you can see that as you use certain moves like Water Gun, it starts to deplete. Now, in order to restore the meter back to full, you can see your character eat berries like this Lepa berry in order to restore that meter. You actually just select the berry once and you can keep eating them until your meter is fully restored. This might not sound like a big deal, but over time, not having features like this in a game can start to get frustrating the more you play. So big props to the Pokopia team for including that, because there's a lot of cozy farming games that don't actually have that kind of mechanic in there. Now, once the meter is full, you'll see the notification pop up that you're fully recovered your PP. Now, something also cool in this game is that your character can run around and grab items they see and just put it in their inventory. When I was playing and I just walked right out of the cave at the beginning of the game, I was already able just to grab some random fences and start putting them in my inventory. So pretty much if you see it, you can probably grab it and put it in your inventory. In this footage, you could see that the character is placing down a punching bag next to a bench, but you could see that sparkle, which indicates that it is a new Pokemon habitat you have specifically created. Specifically, this one is actually going to be for Hitmonchan. And this brings up the point earlier that I made that you could randomly just put objects together to discover a Pokemon habitat. Now, Pokemon in this game are going to have requests for you by having a blue blurb above their head with an exclamation point. In this footage, you can see that we've already interacted specifically with this Hitmonchan for a Pokemon request. Now, the move that you learn from Hitmonchan is going to be Rock Smash, which is going to be extremely useful for breaking blocks. All you have to do is just D-pad to the right towards that exact move on the bottom right and then press ZR. If we pause real quickly, you can also see that some materials actually have a meter that shows up until it breaks. Just a little detail that there might be some harder objects to break if they do add that meter. You don't have to individually collect every single item in the game by pressing a button every single time. Ditto actually has an interesting Kirby kind of move where if you hold down the Y button, you'll be able to inhale all the items on the floor and they'll get inhaled and stored inside of your Pokemon bag. This is actually very efficient and I kind of love that for this game, which makes collecting objects a lot easier while you're on a mission to break a bunch. Now, a quick example of when you complete tasks for Pokemon or do something that they like, you can notice that their friendship level goes up, indicated by the heart and arrow up above Scyther in this shot over here. Now, in this clip, you can see that your main character is going to learn Cut from Scyther, which can be cycled through on the bottom right wheel that we talked about earlier. Now, of course, just like games, you can use it to clear a path. Specifically for Cut, you want to focus on wooden objects like this big wood log over here. When it's cut, you get smaller logs, which you can use for crafting. Crafting is going to be extremely important for progressing with items needed for Pokemon habitats, as well as being able to be made for decorations for your base. Now, the workbench is actually given to you pretty early in the game, very early in the intro tutorial, so you're going to be able to get access to the workbench right at the start of the game. Now, on the workbench screen, when you interact with it, you can see all the items that are available to craft. Of course, this gameplay looks like it's probably very super early in the game, so that's why you're not seeing a lot here. I'm pretty sure there's so much more that they are hiding that we can find in the trailers, so many things. But as you can see over here, we got storage boxes, we got log tables, log chairs, straw beds, and campfires. Now on this screen, you can also see the plus button on the bottom right, which is a favorite option, which would most likely put it into the fourth tab on the top. You can see the amount owned, needed, and the amount you have on the right. You'll notice that the wood stool and straw bed and campfire actually have a little icon attached to it that says relaxation, so it's where Pokemon can actually rest. Now, something cool about the game is whenever you craft your first item, like the straw bed in this footage, it'll say that it is the first one you've made. You also see that when you open up your menu, that there is going to be a check mark on the bottom of the box, which will indicate that you've already crafted it, so it'll make your life a lot easier. These are those little quality of life moments that I find very important in the game, so you don't have to figure out if you made something before and have to scroll through all the menus. You just see the check mark, you know you've made it. Now, in the game, you can press the R stick in, which will highlight the boundaries of any Pokemon specific habitat. You'll also see on the top left in this footage that it'll indicate that this is a Pokemon's home. In this case, you'll see Bulbasaur's home is pretty close by. Now, the character over here is trying to place down a straw bed, and then once it's placed down, the Pokemon there can go relax on it and rest. So that's pretty much what a straw bed does, and you want to make sure you're not bumping into anything, and it has its own space. Now, this game also has a very fun photo mode. You can take pictures of the Pokemon directly, have them look at the camera, change their facial expressions, and even their poses. And you can also swap out to selfie mode. You can see the D-pad left and the right being changed here for the facial expressions. And if you notice, there are a lot of features similar to the photo modes that we literally just had in Pokemon Legends ZA. So it looks like we're including those in this game as well. Now here's another really important move that you learn in the game, which is going to be from the Pokemon Drober, and this move is called Rototiller. With Rototiller, you're basically going to till the ground, which is going to initially be the first step you need to do in order to plant your crops. First, you're going to use Rototiller to till the ground. Then you're going to take the individual seeds in your inventory and plant them. After that, you can swap over to Water Gun to water them. And then here is another clip of the footage being time skipped where you're going to see the crops fully grown, and here is the emotes being shown off like the celebration one. And I think in the game I did come across emotes. I think you might be able to collect emotes. I think there's a lot of things you collect in this game. So now let's jump over to another habitat. In this footage you can see there are 4 flowers together, which is going to be its own unique habitat. Pokemon like Pidgey will spawn here, as well as Pokemon like Combee will spawn here. Also in another trailer, it looks like a Vespiquen even can spawn in here, and that's probably going to be the rare spawn, as the same exact type of habitat can spawn different Pokemon. And other cool habitats I came across while playing Pokopia was a little stool by a fishing rod by the ocean, which ended up making Magikarp spawn. One that I didn't see in a trailer but only saw within my gameplay was seeing how to find an Abra. Essentially for Abra, you just need like a table and a crystal ball on top, and that'll get Abra to spawn. Now you could see in this footage here that your character is pretty much just walking around, bringing the dry savanna area to life by using Water Gun everywhere. However, if you do spot a block like this with water droplets, it actually means that there is a water source behind it. Now, by using Rock Smash and breaking it, water actually comes pouring out of these. And this is where Pokopia actually has some kind of physics to it. As the water naturally makes its way to other blocks and runs along the dry blocks, it hydrates them and brings them back to life on its own without you having to use Water Gun on them. It even can activate water fountains. I'm sure people might be able to even skip growing crops if you have a water source surrounding it. And there's probably a lot of other physics systems in this game that we don't even know yet until we get our hands on it. Now this game is all about fixing up this broken apocalyptic land into a beautiful Pokopia. That's why it's called Pokopia. Now in this clip, you can see your character is able to fix up roads by using Rock Smash to take off the little rubbles on the way. And did you know you can also use the move Rototiller to pick up tall pieces of grass just like this? You can also use it to pick up flowers and relocate them to different spots, indicating why these moves are actually pretty important. And you would probably be able to use this to get a better aesthetic look as opposed to having the flowers and grass scattered everywhere. Now, if you look at your character who is placing down the arch tiling on the stone area, you can see that the patterns on the arch tiling are going to auto-correct so it looks like the patterns align, and it does that after the smoke animation happens. What's even cooler about the whole entire game is that there is another layer that goes on top of them, which is the brick borders, giving a little bit more depth to just a plain road by having a smaller block be placed on top of it. You can also place down stairs connecting them. It's essentially just building out a nice giant road. And you can see that there was an actual accomplishment that says Mark Roads 1, number 1 completed, right over there on the top of your screen, which seems to be a main task. Also, just quickly peep Scyther and Hitmonchan in the background in their specific Pokemon habitat. Here's another clip where you can actually see the character hydrating the environment and using the Rototiller to grab the flowers and place them by the water fountain, which ends up creating another Pokemon habitat called the hydrated flower bed that appears on the screen, which is pretty much just 4 blooming flowers together by water. And specifically based on this menu, 2 Pokemon can be found here. You can see that there is even a star rating when hovered over, indicating how rare specific Pokemon are when they do show up. Here's another habitat being made with leafage, and you can tell again it's a habitat every time by seeing a sparkle around it. Also, I did see another fun little moment in the trailer where you have a bunch of toy blocks. I'm not sure if that's exactly a habitat specifically, but you can see an Alakazam having a little fun with those toy blocks in one of these trailers. So you never know what items could end up being a habitat. Now, during my Pokopia gameplay, I also got to see exactly what multiplayer was, and during my gameplay, I wasn't the host, but I was playing with 3 other people, and there was 1 host and 3 people that show up. Now, you can see pretty much when multiplayer happens, people are going to visit your island, and they're going to spawn in at the Pokemon Center right by the PC. In this footage, there they are, popping in, and now that all the friends have arrived, you can do various things together on the island. Now, I want to point out that the host is the only one that truly benefits from people being on the island. What do I mean by that? Well, specifically, if you set up a habitat for the host, the Pokemon will spawn on the host island, which means the host is the only one that can befriend that Pokemon. Now, this doesn't mean that someone that spawns inside of someone's Pokopia world is completely useless. No, you can completely help them build, you can set up structures, you can even create new habitats, you can craft various things. Pretty much, you're really going full-on assistance on that person's island. And you can also register Pokemon you see on a friend's base into your Pokédex, which may enhance the chance of you finding out what habitat would get them to spawn, which is pretty nice. Or you could just take a look at your friends' habitats and learn right there while you're on their island. Now, there are a lot of fun activities that you can do with your friends, and I think this game on multiplayer is going to be a lot of fun if you're using the Nintendo Switch 2 game chat feature. You'll probably just be memeing around and joking around, and it's pretty much a game where you're going to just be hanging out with friends and having a good time on their island. It's a cool feature, but multiplayer is not mandatory by any means when it comes to this game. I think it's just fun to explore and look around and show off your island to your friends and register their Pokemon they have in your Pokédex. So that is probably the biggest benefit of a multiplayer island. I wasn't able to check if items you take from a multiplayer world and put them in your inventory can go to your own inventory. So that's something we're going to have to find out specifically on launch. Another cool thing that I got to experience was being able to glide as Dragonite, which is another Ditto move that you learn, as well as surfing with Lapras. So you can do that in multiplayer, you can do that in single player. Those are also 2 other important moves that you can learn in the game. In my honest opinion, I think Pokopia is going to be a good time occupier. I think you're going to be able to have a lot of fun because you can keep rebuilding your base over and over again. If you played Animal Crossing, you pretty much know how many times you've rearranged your island and set things up and did different setups, and then you invited your friends and showed off things to them. It's a really interesting concept. I kind of like that, and I love that it's Pokemon themed. And there are so many Pokemon in this game, and you have to figure out how to get their habitats to spawn in, how to get the most optimal arrangements when it comes to gardening and farming, and then you have these berry trees. There's a lot to do in this game, and I'm really excited about that. And I just got a very short sneak peek at what there is in the game. I did not find any of the new forms in my game, like the Pikachu or the Moslax. I didn't see any of those Pokemon in my game because it was only daytime when I played. But yeah, you'll get to experience a lot more when the game comes out. Hopefully we have another direct that shows up soon after I make this video. So I hope this video was helpful if you were trying to figure out exactly what Pokopia is and what the experience is and how deep it may go. Now that you know almost everything about Pokopia, you should check out this video on your screen over here.